Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, I am so excited to announce the return of my Nissan 240SX build to the channel. I'm kicking off a new series on actually completing this thing finally. This has been the most requested series of videos that I've gotten on this channel over the last couple of years, and I'm honestly ashamed that I haven't uploaded more content on this because I have made a lot of off-camera progress, just tinkering on it in my free time and stuff, but yeah, we're here. It's time to finish this. I've been working on it for about 6 years now or so. You know, I've had other little projects on YouTube over the years, but this one was my first legitimate build. I had no idea what I was doing. And I've come a long way. I've still got a lot to learn, but I really truly believe that this car pretty much kicked off the projects that I now feature regularly on the channel. And now I've started a shop with a good buddy of mine, K&J Design and Auto Works. So, you know, this car is very, very special to me, and it is incredibly fun. This thing is an absolute riot, but it looks terrible. So I'm really looking forward to getting this thing in body and paint, finishing some of the custom bodywork bits that I've been wanting to do over the years, and just undoing things that I'm not happy with, redoing, and just all sorts of stuff. It's gonna be amazing. I want to give a big thanks to Autoleap. They're sponsoring this series, and I've actually been working with them on the business side for quite a while. They have an amazing shop management software system that we've been using with K&J to keep up with client builds, do billing, invoicing, order parts, and all sorts of stuff. I've actually been using it with all of the personal projects as well, because I think I'm up to 6, 7, or 8 or so, depending on what you consider a project. So I can't keep it all in my head anymore. So Autoleap has been great for that, and they offered to sponsor this series on getting this car finally finished. So huge, huge thanks to them. I've got their link down in the description box below. So with that being said, this video is basically kicking off the series. So I'm gonna give you guys an update on where the car is currently at, all of the stuff that I've done to it. I've got the build sheet down in the description box below for more detailed information, but we're just gonna have fun, talk about the car, drive the car, and hear how it sounds, because it's amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start her up and let her run. About these RB engines is how they sound. So before we dive into all of the nitty-gritty specifics on the build and the plans going forward, let's get some sound clips. the many cool things of the Haltech IC7 digital dashboard, you can put in custom warning labels, so little Fast and the Furious reference there. This thing is so much fun. I guess the most natural thing to talk about next is the motor itself and what my plans are for finishing everything up in the front. There are way too many things to list for the purpose of this video, so I put the car's build sheet down in the description below so you guys can read through it and see everything that's gone into the car. But in short, this is an RB25. It's a 2.5 liter inline 6-cylinder. This particular motor is a Series 1 out of an R33 generation Nissan Skyline. I had the motor built by Mazworks down in Florida. It has a fully forged bottom end and a more or less stock head. I didn't go through the extra expense of doing aftermarket cams or anything crazy. It's basically just been rebuilt and thoroughly gone through. But the car actually can run on just regular 93 octane fuel or flex fuel or pure E85. The way everything is set up is that the tune is adjusted automatically based on the percentage of ethanol in the fuel, which is a pretty sweet setup. In fact, it's dyno tuned on E85 for 455 wheel horsepower at 7,700 RPM, and that's at about 23.5 PSI of boost. As far as the turbo, I have a Garrett Gen 2 GTX 3071R. It's not a big turbo, but man, it spools so fast. Like, you barely have to touch the throttle before it starts spooling up. So this setup has very little lag, which makes it that much more fun to drive on the back roads. Out back, or going towards the back, we have a 3-inch exhaust, all stainless steel, with a single resonator underneath the driver's seat. It's all finished at the back with a custom blast pipe style dual tip setup, which I've always been a fan of that look, and you know, it just finished up the rear of the car very nicely. The exhaust was actually fabricated by a good friend of mine, John Dillard, and he also made all of the charge piping. But part of the car's sound comes from the turbo manifold. This is a equal length runner manifold from Doc Race. And I don't know, it's just the equal length runners and stuff just allow that iconic RB engine note to sing at its fullest potential. And when you're going down the road, there's just nothing like it. I've got an external wastegate right here that just basically dumps straight down, and we've got the blow-off valve over there. you have probably noticed as well that the top of the motor is not set up like a stock RB25. These are actually RB26 covers, which these covers have gotten just stupid in price in the last few years. I was fortunate to find these a while back when they were still reasonable, but they are a complete bolt-on to an RB25 head. From the factory, the RB25 would have had an intake manifold that wrapped up and partially over the valve covers, so there was like a little dip and stuff. And if you get a side mount intake like this Greddy right here, and it is a genuine Greddy manifold, you have that dip still in there, and it just doesn't look nearly as good as the RB26 covers. So that being said, the RB26 covers are a direct bolt-on to the RB25. The biggest difference is the timing cover. So the RB25 has this variable cam gear thing that sticks out in front of this camshaft over here. The RB26 timing cover is completely straight. The RB25 cover has a cup built into it, basically to accommodate for that cam gear thing. So what some people do when they put the RB26 cover on, they'll cut a hole in the front and just let that cam gear free spin, which I don't like that at all. So my buddy John, the same guy that fabricated all of the exhaust and pipes, actually welded on a cup for me to where it looks like a blend of an RB25 cover and an RB26 cover, and it was so worth it. These things look so good. I obviously had them custom powder coated a wrinkle red, had the cold side of the turbo matched up. I'm just a big fan. This turned out so nice. While I am incredibly proud of how far this car has come, there are a number of things up here that I will end up redoing in the midst of finishing the car. I'll go over all of the specifics in the future videos, but just to cover some of the highlights, I'm going to redo this core support right here. This motor is paired to a 350Z 6-speed transmission, so a CD009. And it is a very long setup, and for the life of me, when I was first shoehorning this bad boy in, I could not fit it without cutting the core support and making it removable, so to speak. But I hate how it looks. This was never meant to be permanent, so I'm going to redo this. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet to make it functional but also look good. I'm still trying to figure that out, but multiple people have mentioned that in the past, so I just wanted to make that known that will be important to fix. I'm going to end up redoing this charge pipe right here and getting rid of this weird coupling, make that look a little bit better. I'm also thinking about reconfiguring the charge pipes up front here, just to make more clearance for the bumper and stuff, and move the intercooler a little bit, because I will be venting the front bumper to get some more airflow to the radiator. I've actually got a set of OEM R32 GTR bumper vents that I'm going to install in there. So again, I'll have all of that in future pieces of content, but there's some things that I want to repaint. I'm going to do a different catch can setup that has a little bit more clearance. With the carbon fiber hood, those filters like barely hit and stuff, so I'm going to get rid of that and do a little bit more of a streamlined setup, repaint some things, get some stuff cosmetically freshened up a bit, but everything else up here is more or less done. It's really just nitpicky fine-tuning, redoing, that kind of stuff. At this moment, the car does not have working air conditioning. It does have a working heater. I do plan on putting air conditioning in this car at some point. I just don't know when that point will be, because my main goal, again, is just to get the car finished and painted and pretty. So I've got a lot of the hard to find things, like a new old stock Skyline AC compressor. I've got Skyline and 240SX AC line sets, and you know, adapter brackets for the compressor and everything. So I've got a lot of stuff, but there's still a bunch of other things that will have to be put in, probably universal stuff, but yeah, it's on the list. Just don't know when it's going to be, so at least the heater works. I also wanted to highlight some other cool things in the engine bay that has retained a lot of, you know, nice features and has made putting this back together a whole lot easier. For starters, if you guys have never heard of Chase Bays, definitely check them out, because they offer a huge portfolio of high quality fluid transfer products for all sorts of domestic and import vehicles, and I've pretty much got their complete catalog for the S13 240SX in this car. So let me highlight some of that stuff because it's really cool. This is their windshield washer reservoir, so I don't have any kind of factory stuff left in here, so this allowed me to tap into the factory wiring and have windshield washer jets work just like they would have from the factory. This car has a set of really big Willwood brakes on it with 6-piston calipers, which I'll show you guys in just a bit, but I ended up deleting the vacuum brake booster that I had on the car previously because there is no room. And well, you know, another thing with the RB is that you got the turbo, or the hot side of the turbo, and the downpipe right here, and depending on the clearance of your booster and master cylinder, you could end up boiling the brake fluid. So you got to be careful with stuff like that and use like proper shielding and whatnot. But anyway, I ended up getting rid of the brake booster and used this booster delete kit from Chase Bays, which actually ties in the hydraulic system for the brakes with the clutch, so it's all on its same fluid reservoir setup. I've got their full brake line kit and whatnot. It's all tucked and hidden and stuff. You don't see anything. From the factory, all of the brake lines would have come across there, so it definitely led to a cleaner look. And even though I don't have power brakes, this thing stops so good. I'm used to driving vehicles with, you know, older vehicles with manual brakes, so you know, the stopping power is just proportionate depending on how much you're pressing the pedal. But with these upgraded brakes and stuff, it's got a really, really good, predictable feel with it. So I'm very, very impressed with how that turned out. As far as the power steering system, I got lucky and found a new old stock power steering pump from a Skyline, and I coupled that to Chase Bay's remote power steering reservoir kit. So it comes with lines and fittings and all this kind of stuff, and I ended up mounting the reservoir to the shroud of the radiator, so that was a nice place to put that. I've got a coolant overflow tank right here and a bunch of other things that I just can't remember right off. Oh, the most important thing, they're tucked radiator and dual electric fans, so it fits in really nice right there, because this is a pretty long engine, quite a lot longer than the 2.4 4-cylinder that would have been in this car from the factory. There's still not a whole lot of room, but it's decent enough to access stuff in here if need be. The motor mount setup that I ended up using is from a company called Syco, S-Y-K-O. And compared to some of the other motor mount kits to put an RB into an S chassis, this one is set down lower and further towards the back, which posed some more unique clearance problems to figure out, but I really like the configuration. It balances the weight a little bit better, and again, it gave a bit more clearance up here to be able to run a proper puller fan setup, so very happy about that. Let's see, I've also done a GM LS1 alternator conversion, so it's about 140 amps or so. Nice upgrade over the factory alternator. I can talk about the motor all day long, but let's switch gears and talk about some of the restoration plans I have. Pretty much every aspect of the car, from the drivetrain to the chassis and even the aesthetics, have been heavily modified over a stock S13 240SX. That being said, with all of the modifications, I still wanted the overall character of the car to be very Nissan and utilize as many factory original Nissan parts as possible. Like many other folks out there, I'm a really big fan of the Type X version of the kooky 180SX that was produced in Japan during the late 90s. So I wanted to basically convert my car over to the Type X 180SX. So over a few years, I tracked down all of the Nissan original parts to do the conversion proper, right down to all of the clips and fasteners and the super rare optional front bumper lip. A lot of these parts are no longer available, aside from getting lucky and finding some used that are still in decent shape. There are some parts that are actually still available through Nissan, like the front bumper, the taillights. I'm not sure about the spoiler, but you know, odds and ends here and there, but that's why it took me so long to piece the entire kit together, just flat out due to the availability of parts. A lot of people have asked me what color I plan on painting the car, and I'm going to stick with the original color. It's called Midnight Blue Pearl. It's a really pretty color, especially in the sun, where the pearl effect kind of gives almost a purple hue to it in certain light. Plus, it's the perfect complement to the factory blue interior. I am going to do one modification to the front bumper to improve airflow to the intercooler and radiator. That's going to be incorporating a set of genuine bumper vents from an R32 Nissan GTR, and here is one of the vents. Through Nissan's Heritage program, they're starting to remake a lot of parts for some of these classic, iconic Nissan performance cars. So I was able to order this brand new from Nissan. It's legitimate ABS plastic with all of the correct tabs. All of the instructions or the paperwork and whatnot is all in Japanese, which is really cool. But it's amazing that you're able to buy stuff like this brand new. So it's going to be a really unique addition to the front end, and it's going to have a functional benefit as well. The other major body modification I'm planning on is to do metal fender flares to basically create a factory-ish wide body stance similar to the Z31 Nissan 300ZX of like the 1980s. Nothing too aggressive, but just enough to poke the fenders and rear quarters out a little bit to cover the top edges of the tires. I think it'll look really good. We'll fit these in one of the upcoming episodes. Earlier this year, I got a Seabon carbon fiber hood for the car, which they offer a whole bunch of different styles, but this particular style has always been my favorite. There was a bit of a waiting list that I had to get on, but it was absolutely worth the wait because it not only looks really cool, but it provides functional benefit as well. I've got those NACA ducts on either side, which help funnel in additional cool air as the car is going down the road, and there's two big exit vents right here for heat to just come out over the car. So it allows air to circulate, it allows more heat to get out versus the stock smooth hood, plus it looks awesome. This video has already dragged on way longer than I thought it would, so if you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. It really, really means a lot. I'm going to try to wrap this up as soon as I can. I wanted to show you guys real quick my collection of weather stripping for the rest of the exterior restoration. This is pretty much 95% of all of the weather stripping used on the S13 240SX. I'm still missing a few little small things that I've got to track down that really aren't that big of a deal. But the biggest thing that cannot be purchased is new quarter window weather stripping. It is not available by itself, and from my understanding, it was already bonded to the quarter glass from the factory. The quarter glass is discontinued, so you know, when you're redoing one of these cars, if your weather stripping's in bad shape, you almost just need to find an extra set of windows with donor weather stripping. It's frustrating, but thankfully mine's in pretty good shape. Before I put the car on my lift and talk about the chassis, let's go over the interior. This won't take very long because the back seat and trunk area is completely gutted out. I haven't bothered putting it all back in because I'm going to pull most of the interior back out when it's time for bodywork and the rest of the body fabrication stuff that I want to do. So I won't bother showing any of that stuff, just focus on the front. But you know, for being a 1989 240, this interior is in spectacular shape. I've replaced the carpet twice because the first time I did a horrible job. It looks really, really good now, and this shade matches the interior perfect. The original shade that I had, you know, was a little off, unfortunately. But anyway, that was one of the things I did in my personal time. But these are the original seats, the original door cards, and this is probably one of the most noteworthy features of the entire car, a crack-free blue dash. I keep this thing conditioned pretty regularly, but you know, it's just very, very cool. One of those things that sets the car apart. This is a factory sunroof car, and I have the cover for it still, and the little bag that the cover goes into. It's very, very clean. I do plan on a full custom audio system build at some point, but that's going to be a little later on. Got a new old stock leather shift knob. I had the original leather steering wheel restored a while back, and of course, like you guys saw earlier, I've ditched the factory instruments for a Haltech IC7 digital dashboard. Very customizable, really, really cool if you guys have never seen one before. But I ended up ordering a custom dash bezel from a company out in Australia to be able to mount the digital dashboard in the factory spot. And the fit and finish turned out really, really good. Like I said earlier, when it comes to the car's aesthetics, I wanted to try to keep as much Nissan original as possible, and especially with the interior, because that's where you spend most of your time. I think it turned out really, really good with the restoration work that I've done so far. There's still a few little things here and there that I still want to address, but it's mostly done, except for, of course, the audio system at some point. But you know, it's like the old saying goes, it's only original once. I just really, really like how this car was originally set up, so I didn't want to take away from it. The car also still has its power retractable shoulder belts, which work just fine. Some other quick things I wanted to show you guys, more subtle things that I did with the interior. For one, the switches on either side of the steering column. Now, it's really annoying to me when you've got buttons that don't do anything, or buttons that used to do stuff and no longer do stuff. So in base model cars, you would have had these blank switches, or just, you know, black plastic inserts that would go where a switch would have been otherwise. So any of the features that I deleted out of the car, like the cruise control, and I'll be deleting the rear wiper and stuff like that, all of those corresponding switches have been replaced with the delete insert. So there are no buttons within this interior that are non-functional. It's just one of those little OCD things that I wanted to do. The rear wiper and squirter will be eliminated and smoothed out along with the antenna. The last thing I wanted to show you guys was my strategic placement of USB ports. So I had a double DIN radio in this car. I took it out for another one of my projects, and I'll put one back in when I move towards the stereo build. But I took out the factory cigarette lighter and put a USB port in its place. That way I can hook up my phone to charge it and use certain things like Apple CarPlay. There's a couple of USB ports underneath the driver's portion of the dash as well. The one on the right allows a laptop connection to the Haltech ECU. The one on the left allows connection to the digital dashboard for further personalizations. As far as the wheels, I went with Volk Racing TE37 SLs. The SL stands for super light, and it was a special model of the TE37, which itself is a pretty iconic wheel design. I've always loved these. They are a little hard to come by nowadays, but I was fortunate to pick these up several years back. But they're a forged aluminum wheel. These measure 17 by 9 inches and have a plus 12 offset, and they're wrapped in 245/45 tires. It's the same size all the way around. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got custom Willwood big brake kits all the way around the car. What's unique about this is that if you go on Willwood's site and look up big brake kits for 240s, all you'll find are front brake kits that have 4-piston calipers. My setup has 6-piston calipers on the front, and of course I've got the custom setup in the rear. I ordered all of this way back when from a company down in Florida called Raw Brokerage. They put the front kit together, if I remember correctly, using components that were shared with 350Z perhaps. The rear kit, I don't know if the parts are shared, but the caliper mounting bracket is custom machined from billet aluminum, and it's a single piston caliper that incorporates an emergency brake. So, with these cars, the majority of the braking is done in the front, so those 6-piston brakes definitely do their job. And like I said, they feel really nice with the Chase Bay's manual brake conversion. But it is definitely nice to still have the retention of a parking brake. The majority of my suspension is fully adjustable. The only things that aren't are the lower control arms. All of the suspension parts are from a company called SPL. They make some extremely high quality and lightweight suspension components for all sorts of different vehicles. But they even go as far as using FK spherical bearings instead of traditional rubber bushings or polyurethane bushings. They have a self-cleaning Teflon liner, and they're supposed to just about be indestructible. That being said, there are no rubber bushings left in this chassis. What isn't one of the spherical bearings is a polyurethane bushing. Same thing with the rear subframe, it's all polyurethane bushings. SPL also makes these sweet brake cooling channels that bolt right to their tension rods, so as you're going down the road, you got that nice channel right there to shove all that cool air to help cool the brakes. Some additional strengthening I've done include strut tower braces front and rear, as well as installing this Nismo power brace. Some of the other more noteworthy things underneath here is a new rack and pinion, of course the CD009 6-speed transmission, an aluminum one-piece drive shaft, and an S15 helical limited slip differential with upgraded axles. I also installed a completely new fuel system. At this point, the car is pretty much mechanically and electrically finished. There's really not anything else I need to do underneath the car or engine-wise, aside from some of the cleanup touches and stuff that I was talking about earlier, but it is looking really nice underneath here. I actually take the time to wipe all of this down every now and then just because it looks so nice and fresh, but man, it is so awesome to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Well everyone, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you all are as excited as I am to see this build go to completion. A big thanks once again to Autoleap for sponsoring this series. We're going to have so much fun and this car is going to be amazing. If you haven't subscribed already, consider doing so and make sure that little notification bell is selected so you can get notified of all of the new uploads. Don't forget to leave a like down below because it really helps the videos a lot. And follow the social media platforms at SaabKyle04 LLC on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter so you can be first to know when the new episodes are going to be dropping. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.